Now that COVID-19 is finally being taken seriously by our government, there has been, a lot of panic. People are going to supermarkets, grocery stores throughout the country, maybe even like mom and pop shops, and they're experiencing something that's a real problem, and that's the price gouging. And there's been a lot of attention on some of these big box retailers and the price gouging that they've been doing. But the truth is that every single state has experienced this, and it's not only big retailers. There are mom and pop shops. There are some of the more independent businesses doing this, and there are private individuals who are, stockpiling certain things with the sole intention of selling it at a ridiculous price. So there was a really great story about this that I wanted to share details about. And so the Associated Press did this in-depth study to see, just how bad is it? How many complaints have been filed? How many states are experiencing it? It turns out that this Associated Press survey of state attorneys general or consumer protection agencies across the country found the number exceeded 5,000, with hundreds more coming in every day. So there have been all these complaints, and keep in mind that this is an underestimate because some people don't report things. They'll just maybe complain about it on social media, but this survey focuses specifically on formal complaints that have been filed, right? So apparently New York, which alone has received more than 1,000 complaints, has taken some action, luckily. They issued 550 violations and imposed $275,000 in fines for gouging, including one case in which a store was accused of selling bottles of Purell at $79 each. It's so incredibly frustrating to see this type of behavior, right? At a time when people are desperate, they're scared. Of course, in the type of system that we live in, where, profit is everything, making money is everything, people are gonna exploit a crisis like this. And to be, absolutely clear, we're gonna focus on what our own lawmakers have done in exploiting this crisis for profit. There's certainly a lot of that going on as well. And look, the fish does rot from the head down. And I think that this is something that we're experiencing on a higher level when it comes to government. And when you see government officials, maybe doing things like insider trading or doing all of these, criminal acts that have tanked our economy in the past, and they face no consequences, that really does message to the American people that, hey, profit over everything, including being kind to your fellow Americans at a time of crisis. And so it just kind of green lights, I think, some of the behavior that we're seeing. This is really the messaging you get from a hyper-capitalistic society. You got to call it what it is. Again, it's all about profits over human lives, profits over what people need to survive, and it's really just gross. Let me give you more examples. In Maine, investigators had photographic evidence from a shopper to back up the convenience store sale of the $10 rolls of toilet paper. So there was a store a shopper who was selling $10 rolls of toilet paper. And then in Tennessee, state lawyers forced two brothers to stop selling the more than 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer they hoarded. And that was after investigators followed through on a tip that they received. There was one store that was actually charging people not for bottles of hand sanitizer, but for single squirts from a bottle of hand sanitizer. They were charging customers $1 each. And then also in all, about 40 states responded with numbers that included both tips and formally filed complaints against everything from individuals and mom and pop stores to big box retailers. So it's happening, across the board. And the count is certainly low, again, because this is really relying on formal complaints as opposed to, looking into people who maybe didn't file that formal complaint but had similar experiences. What I also found interesting is, look, when it comes to price gouging, each state handles it differently. And there are some states that don't have any real protections for their residents when they're being price gouged. So while some states have gone to court against sellers, others have determined cases didn't meet their legal standard for price gouging, which generally involves an increase of more than 10%. About 10 states have no such law. So there are states that offer absolutely no protections. And it's really just, it's devastating because especially at a time like now, we do need those types of protections. I think that as scary and unsettling as the coronavirus is, it's also a teachable moment for a lot of people, I think. It shows you all of these flaws that we have in our systems, the lack of protections we have as consumers, the lack of, robust protections we have when it comes to keeping us physically safe during a pandemic. And when you're told over and over again by both our politicians and the press that we live in the greatest country in the world, we have the best healthcare in the world, you really have to sit back and ask yourself, first of all, who have I trusted to get my news, to get my information? Who have I voted for to represent me? And have they really represented me? And what am I going to do moving forward to, offer the types of protections and the robust social safety net that we need to really remain stable and safe when something like this occurs? It's a teachable moment. And what is really disheartening is to see that so many of our lawmakers who claim that, they're on the left and that they care about the average American worker and they care about consumer protections, their messaging is weak at best, non-existent at worst. And again, if I had any power as a US lawmaker, I would really, really use this opportunity to aggressively pass the very policies that Democrats have claimed they've wanted to pass in the, in their campaigns, on the debate stage. And I'm unfortunately only seeing very few do that. As I've said on the show before, one of the most important aspects of Bernie's campaign has been the just the exposure that some of these policy proposals have gotten. And I think at a time like now, those proposals are incredibly important to really do a deep dive into and discuss, okay, how would Medicare for all or a single payer system keep this country safer in the middle of a pandemic? These are questions that we really need to ask. So anyway, I'll have more stories for you guys later. We're currently working on our live main show, which will be live at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys enjoy it. We are going to get into this insane story of insider trading among senators, most of whom are Republicans, but there is a Democrat mentioned, and I'm sure you guys would be unsurprised to find out which Democrat that is. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.